Feel free to make yourselves at home. For those of you with a particular interest in the next election, I don't mean that literally.
And I think that finger point was right at you, Governor Haley Barbour.
And President Obama better be checking to see if anybody was measuring the drapes there at the White House. Top line starts right now.
Welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Amy Walter.
I'm Karen Travers.
Every day, noon Eastern, we bring you the latest in politics. You can follow us, of course, at the Twitters, at Karen Travers, and at Amy E. Walter. Karen Travers, what is your top line today?
We'll head to the Midwest. Walker, Wisconsin Ranger, as the budget showdown continues out there in the Badger State. New polling today from the New York Times and CBS found that Americans are on the side of public employees. 60% said they oppose weakening the bargaining rights of public employee unions. Just 33%, Amy, support it. This means that perhaps Governor Walker is picking the wrong fight here in Wisconsin, trying to go in this showdown with the unions. Meanwhile, the RGA has weighed in, and they're taking Governor Walker's side, of course. Take a listen.
It's a sea of red ink in Madison. And while Senate Democrats are fleeing their responsibility, Governor Walker is leading.
Yeah, it's not very often that you see the campaign arm for the Republican Governors Association get in for somebody who was just elected.
He's got 3.5 years till the next election.
So this says they're trying to give some cover to many of their other governors who are trying to do some of the same
knowing
things.
that this could keep going across the state.
Across other states in the country. Yes. All right. Next up, awkward. House Oversight Chairman Darrell Issa, Republican, is now investigating his own spokesman for allegedly forwarding private emails from other reporters to the New York Times, Mark Leibovich. I don't think they taught that in J school, did they?
I don't think so. And Darrell Issa is the new sheriff in town. He's the head of the Oversight Committee. He is going to be the one investigating the Obama administration. This doesn't look good when he's now investigating his own staff. I mean, he's going to be very busy, but this isn't really the first big investigation you want to have when you take over this powerful position.
Absolutely.
Next up, Newt goes exploring. Sources tell ABC News that former House Speaker Newt Gingrich has made up his mind, not just to run, but he's forming a presidential exploratory committee. He'll make it official by the end of this week, and then it is off to the races. The former speaker will head to Iowa next Monday, and he has a trip scheduled for New Hampshire in mid-March. We're so excited. Finally, somebody's getting in. This is getting started.
That's right, and that's why, Newt, it was very smart for him to start with this exploratory, because he gets one quick bite at the apple now. We give him a lot of press, and then, guess what? When he announces officially, he gets another
Two different, yes.
Of course, unless there's some other crisis.
Right, exactly. Everything could overshadow.
That's right. All right, and finally, I am not a dancer. Christine O'Donnell says no to Dancing with the Stars because she's just way too busy with her book about her 2010 election, and she's raising money for 2012 candidates. The good news, Karen, guess what? Ralph Macchio and Kirstie Alley both on, which means we might see them do the rumba.
I've got my money on Kendra Wilkerson. I've already predicted it. Talk to me in 10 weeks. That is who I think will win. I'm very into Dancing with the Stars.
I can see that. Mark it down. All right. Well, joining us from Capitol Hill, we're very excited to have Chris Van Hollen, Congressman Chris Van Hollen, the ranking member on the Budget Committee, of course, where lots of action is happening. Congressman, I want to just start off here today. There's, of course, a vote on extending the continuing resolution for another 2 weeks. But it looks as if maybe we're just seeing Congress kick the can down the road for another short time. Is this thing ever going to get resolved, or are we just going to see short-term after short-term solution?
Well, that's exactly the right question. It obviously makes sense for us to come together and have a long-term solution. It's no way to run a government, week by week here. The good news was, at least for a 2-week period, the cooler heads in the Republican Party prevailed, but there's no evidence that will continue beyond the 2 weeks. It suggests that, from their statements, that they're going to continue to press for $61 billion of cuts, which is just reckless in terms of the negative impact it will have on the economy and the fact that more people will lose jobs. So while we should be making responsible cuts and also taking a long-term approach to deficit reduction, this immediate short-term approach they're taking is the bad medicine for the economy right now.
Congressman Van Hollen, we heard last night that the White House was suggesting that perhaps a 4-week continuing resolution with $8 billion in cuts was the better way to go, push this off a little bit further, give more breathing room. Speaker Boehner was asked about this today, and he seemed to suggest that maybe they could have been open to that if they only had more time. Take a listen to what he said.
We were forced to move on our own. I think we're taking a responsible path forward to keep the government open and to meet our commitment to cut spending.
Congressman, is that a fair assessment of this? Could this have come up a couple days ago and perhaps you could have had 4 weeks of breathing room before that tougher fight that you're going to have in now it looks like 2 weeks?
Look, I'm not sure. We're going to have this back and forth now for a period of time, whether it's 2 weeks or a month. The reality is we should come together now for a 7-month plan so we don't have this sort of herky-jerky approach. And again, we need to do this in a responsible way. Our main objective should be not to do anything now that will slow down the economic recovery and put more people out of work. I mean, that's the wrong way to go. So the issue is whether cooler heads will prevail. There are some cuts that all sides can agree should be made in terms of efficiency, but in terms of the more reckless approach, I hope the White House will come out and clearly reject it. The president indicated that he would veto the $61 billion approach. We've already cut $41 billion from the president's request. So I hope we can work it out. But, you know, again, the pressure may have been relieved for 2 weeks. It appears to be the case. But we're going to be right back in the same position we are today unless we can hammer out some agreement for the longer term.
Well, it's interesting. I saw in an interview that you did with C-SPAN the other day, you made a suggestion that maybe Republican leadership will look to Democrats for some votes, especially if some of the Tea Party-aligned Republicans decide that the compromise being hammered out isn't good enough. Are you hearing anything about that? Are Democrats actually sitting down and talking with Republican leadership?
We have not had many conversations with our Republican colleagues on the House side. They've just sort of moved forward with their own plan. There hadn't been a lot of dialogue, as you know. In fact, we presented a substitute amendment to the $4 billion cut over the next couple weeks just last night, where we said it's a mistake to cut so much out of education, and instead we found other cuts in the Census Bureau. Same amount of cuts. In fact, ours were slightly larger for this period of time, but my point is that they not only rejected that totally, but they're not even going to allow us to offer that as an alternative on the floor, even though it achieves a little more savings and just not making the same cuts to education. There may be other conversations going on in the Senate between the Democrats and Republicans there, but wherever those conversations are happening, it's important that we try and work this out. I know there are some on the Republican side that want to push this not just to the brink, but over the brink. If they don't get their cuts that will hurt the economy, and that's a mistake to go in that direction.
Congressman, you know, you're talking about cooler heads, but how contentious do you think this fight's going to be in 2 weeks, and what are the Democrats going to do to put themselves in maybe a better negotiating position? You say you haven't had those conversations with your Republican colleagues. What's going to be different after March 17th, March 18th?
Well, I have to say, I mean, it's not clear right now what will be different, and that is troubling because as of now, it looks like we'll be right back into the same spot 2 weeks from now. Now, we've made it very clear that we will work with our Republican colleagues to find responsible approaches to reducing the deficit. That involves some cuts. We've also said that they should put on the floor of the House this week legislation to eliminate the huge taxpayer subsidies for the oil and gas industry. I mean, that's worth $40 billion over a period of time. Why should we be giving these taxpayer subsidies to the big oil companies when we're all paying a lot for gas and oil company profits are through the roof? I mean, that's just common sense. So hopefully they'll be willing to come together rather than marching along this very rigid ideological path that says we've got to hit this arbitrary number, even if it means slowing down the fragile economy and putting more people out of work. And You know, the comment that the Speaker made, Speaker Boehner made the other day when confronted with the fact that some people would lose their jobs, was so be it. And I don't think that that's the view that the American people are taking to this whole debate.
All right, well, Congressman, we will sure to be talking to you a lot more then over the coming 2 weeks. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you. We'll be watching
Really
Dancing with the
appreciate
Stars with you.
Excellent. You got to pick your favorite.
You're going to regret that offer.
I'm not in. I mean, you should volunteer.
Oh, that is dangerous. Thank you so much.